Okay. What does somebody need to be aware of if they are making somebody redundant?
Well, the first thing is what redundancy is, because a lot of people go, oh yeah, I want to get rid of that person, usually because of performance or capability, and they think, if I say they're redundant, it's a nicer way of dismissing them. It's not.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah, it's a convenient fiction for both the employer and the employee. Oh, it wasn't my fault, they made me redundant. But it's the wrong way to deal with things. So let's get at it. The classic definition of a redundancy is that someone's work of the kind that they do has ceased or diminished. Now, we're seeing an awful lot of redundancies during this pandemic.
Yeah.
There's no, because the work genuinely has ceased or diminished, and the business owner can run a slimmed down business, but not a larger one. So that's a genuine need. And that's called a potential fair reason for dismissal, right? If it's a genuine redundancy. Depending on the size of the business will depend on how you deal with that. So for instance, most business owners, in my experience, know who they want to make redundant. And immediately they have that thought process, it becomes unfair because they've kind of pre-selected that person based on their personal views rather than any objectively justifiable business reasons. So, what I'm saying there is that, let's say that you've got 20 production operatives, right? And you need 10. So you're looking at making 50% of them losing their jobs. They've been there for a range of times, right? So some of them are entitled to being there for 10 years. Some have only been there for 2 years. And so you have to adopt a policy that's fair to everyone. So if the policy is, last in, first out, used to be one.
Yeah, I've heard of that one.
You've got to be very careful using those justifications because the last in would tend to be younger in an awful lot of industries. So what you're effectively doing then is getting rid of young people, which would be discriminatory.
Right, okay.
Policy. I know that sounds really complicated, but what I'm saying is that, you as an employer have to be a fair person. That's why your staff, hopefully, one of the reasons that they're with you is because they respect your judgment, you're a business leader, and you're fair, right? They might not like you, but they know that you're a fair person. And so when you're when you've got a redundancy situation, it has to be a genuine one, and it has to be dealt with fairly and things. So again, I feel like an advert for ACAS, but you'll find very good examples on there, and it's a free service. So why wouldn't you have a look and check?
Okay.
So, you have a duty to consult with your employees as early as possible, right? So if you really think, oh, hang on a second, there's nothing that we can do to avoid this, don't leave it to the last minute and announce the redundancies are happening in a week's time. You immediately call the affected staff together and you have a chat with them and you say, actually, I think this is a pretty temporary downturn, and particularly for the pandemic at the moment, that's probably true. I want to retain all of the skills that you have, right? And I don't want to pick and choose as to who loses their job, right? So what I can say is that instead of making 50% of staff redundant or 25% of staff redundant, if you'll all agree to a 3-day week, we can avoid that. We can wait, see how it gets better. And as soon as it is, I'll report back to you, right? And we'll start increasing the days or increasing the hours. And a lot of employees, I know some at the moment who've done exactly that. And people have respected that, 4-day a week instead of 5-day a week. Actually, 80% what they were receiving on furlough.
Right,
But
okay.
that the employers, right? So, I've known some companies are going for 60%, so losing 40% of salary in the employees affected, but everyone's retaining their jobs. And, you know, as an employer, you should always look to avoid redundancy except as a last resort in any event. And so think about ways that you can do that. Don't use redundancy as an excuse to get rid of bad people, right? Because if they're bad people, you know, actually face that up, you know. And I know relationships are difficult, particularly in small organizations, but there's no real way around it, you know. So face it up and say, well, you know, let's have this out now.
Yeah, and do the disciplinary procedure instead of
Yeah.
making them redundant. Yeah.
Yeah, because
Okay.
that's the truth of it. Again, you know, you're acting as a fair employer. You can be seen to be honest about things. Now, you know, sometimes it will be that you might agree with that employee because for particular reasons that you be prepared to confirm that rather than the dismissal for, you know, bad performance, that, you know, that you be prepared to confirm that it was because of the economic circumstance you had to let them go. You know? So those kind of things are a normal part of that kind of unfortunate negotiation.
Okay.